Story 1. Not the couple getting married, but the best man and maid of honor who were married to each other. The best man's speech was all about how hard it was to be married. I've been married for a year and it feels like 100 years. The maid of honor stands up to give a speech and just says, "Ditto." It was so awkward and really brought the whole room down. The brother of the bride stood up and gave a nice impromptu speech about teamwork and having a partner to go through life with, and how happy the family was to have the groom join their family. The best man and maid of honor were divorced within a year. The couple who got married are still married over 30 years later. I sometimes wonder if the speeches actually were helpful in demonstrating how not to act as a couple. For me, the complex backstory is that the bride's brother is gay and has been in a long-term relationship for over 40 years. At the time he gave his speech about marriage, he couldn't marry the man he loved, and I think his passionate defense of marriage was born from that. When people would say they were against gay marriage because it makes a mockery of marriage, I'd think of that night. The married couple who had no respect for marriage could easily marry, and did over and over again, and the man who stood up and defended marriage could not. He's married now and lovingly takes care of his husband as he battles health issues. Story 2. She told me 2 days before that she found her fiancé annoying and that she didn't like him and that he was awful in bed. She was visibly, endlessly uncomfortable at the rehearsal wedding and dinner combo. Then she sobbed the entire day of. She ended up not getting any makeup done because she wouldn't stop sobbing and refused to get dressed, stalling the wedding 35 minutes. She then said 45 minutes of vows that she had prepared, 9 pages of things like inappropriate vows to friends and family, his parents and sisters, none of them her husband, and then almost didn't say, "I do," managed to get yeah, I do out of her almost a full 60 seconds after she was supposed to say anything. I could go on for hours, but it was the most painful and awkward wedding I've ever been to. I've got my money on 10 months. We're 1 month in. 2.5-month update. I've distanced myself from them completely. She's really clingy and likes to gossip about how awful her husband is, and I really don't have the time. She's also told me they're in couples therapy after I expressed negativity towards some extremely concerning things she said regarding their relationship and lack of communication. But I'm still betting on 10 months because she believes it's all his fault and truly believes his parents and sisters are exactly the same. Newsflash. They're all lovely people. 5-month update. I no longer associate with them, so I'm out of the loop regarding juicy details. Last I heard they keep moving all over the country and fight nonstop. No more lovey-dovey images on social media. Seems to be right on track for a 10-month breakup. 2-year update. I win. Well, kinda. I feel like that's horrible to say. It's been 2 years and I've been meaning to update this post for a while. My original bet was 10 months. They lasted 1 year and 10 months, almost to the day. I wish I could say that this entire journey has been bittersweet, but honestly it's been hilarious and funny and sad and unnecessary. I feel really, really bad for my husband's best friend. She trash-talked him all over Facebook and shared all their private text messages. It was disgusting on her part and he really didn't deserve to deal with her behavior. I'm so glad he's free from her now. Story 3. When they were doing the vows and the priest got to the "for richer or poorer" part and she said, "for richer or richer and maybe for poorer." The officiant was not pleased. I think they made it a year. Story 4. I've got 2. One of my good friends got married and I had never met her before the wedding because she's just shy. On the wedding day, she was belligerently drunk before the ceremony even started and could not even get through the lines she was supposed to repeat. Like, "I promise to love you." She ended up slapping the groom, spilling champagne on her dress, and then crying under a table while he tried to comfort her. They lasted about 4 months. Another one was my wife's friend. She is a very conservative, religious white girl who married a black man. Most of her racist family did not approve of the marriage and did not show up. But she planned the whole wedding around race. There was a vanilla cake for her and a chocolate cake for him. The wedding colors were black and white, and even the meals were white meat for her side and dark meat for his. It was extremely uncomfortable as a guest. They lasted 2 years but broke up because he was abusive and almost killed her, rather than due to the weird racial tension. Story 5 will start 3 days before. The wedding was a Renaissance fair-style wedding outside at a large gazebo, and the maid of honor had promised to purchase a stylized dress for my bride that they had agreed on. 3 days before the wedding, she called to tell us she had no money and was embarrassed to admit it. So we literally hand-sewed one together in 24 hours. In my opinion, it turned out pretty nice for what we had. The bride's mother was supposed to pick up the cake in Austin and drive an hour south for the wedding. She left her house 30 minutes before the wedding to pick it up. When she finally showed up an hour late, the cake was destroyed. She put it in the back seat and drove recklessly all the way down, just slamming it against the box with every turn. During the 1 hour delay, there was almost a fist fight between two groomsmen because the maid of honor showed up in the dress that she was unable to afford. It was an obvious attempt to upstage the bride. The same maid of honor, during her speech after the ceremony, started it off by saying, "When we all met, I did not like Dracarim 411 at all. However, I found that he grows on you like a fungus." Needless to say, my entire side of the family was super cold to all of this. Since all of these issues were on her side of friendships or families, I was told to suck it up, and we'll discuss it later. I sort of assumed that a lot of these friends had just shown themselves the door. Quite the opposite. In fact, 2 years later, when I accepted my first well-paying job out of college, it became an issue that it was an hour and a half out of Austin, so she decided to just stay in Austin to be with her friends. I mailed her the divorce papers, and since she couldn't be bothered to even show up to the hearing, I've never seen her again. Story 6. Not at the wedding itself, but I used to work at a David's bridal. A bride came in with tons of friends. We did the say yes to the dress thing, and an hour later she was standing there in $3,000 worth of stuff and didn't have any money with her or in her account. She decided she wanted to apply for the store credit card. I ran it through the system and she got denied. She then called the groom for his information, which, to be fair, people did all the time, and he told her no. She threw a huge fit on the phone with him, standing on the bridal stage, literally demanding, "Why not? Why? Why?" like an actual child over and over again. I've never seen a 30-year-old age backwards so quickly. She was just a brat, literally stomping her feet in front of me, all her friends, and the other bride in the store. I was embarrassed. At the end of all that, she hung up on him, and her friend said, "I'm so sorry you can't get your dress." And the bride stopped crying instantly and just said, "Oh, I'll get the dress. I just have to do this at home, and when he gets mad enough, he'll come get it for me, so I'll stop." Speechless. Sure enough, the girl came back 2 days later with her man, and he applied for the credit card and bought the dress. He was livid and silent, and she was smug as hell. Can't imagine they're having a happy marriage if they are still together. Story 7. I'm witnessing one from the sidelines now. My wife's brother just got married this past May. The bride's mother is a big do-it-yourself person and went a little overboard with extra flowers, table pieces, decorations, etc. Note I said extra. It was already decorated by the venue, and she just took it upon herself to buy and add way more stuff. Anyway, a few weeks ago she sends my mother-in-law, the groom's mom, an email with receipts for all the extra stuff she bought, $7,000 worth, and asks that she pay half since it was technically set up in time for the rehearsal dinner for guests to enjoy. It is causing a huge rift between the newlyweds since the bride is taking her mom's side. Story 8. My wife got invited to a client's daughter's wedding. The couple were both drama students. Many of the bridal party were drama students. The maid of honor's toast consisted of tearful declarations of unrequited love to the groom, along the lines of, "If it couldn't be me, I'm glad it's my best friend that's marrying you." The best man's speech was a lusty declaration of, "If it doesn't work out, call me babe, like the previous time you called me." Other toasts were similarly weird. A guy at the table I was seated at was a friend of the bride and said to me that he was this close to standing up during the speak now or forever hold your peace thing. I'm still not sure if the whole thing was a bunch of emotionally messed up 20-year-olds or one big piece of performance art. Story 9. I was maid of honor. The best man, the couple, and I went into a separate little room to do the signing stuff. The bride excused herself to go to the bathroom, and the groom started making pretty mean remarks about her cooking, something she's passionate about, to the officiant. She came back, heard they were talking about cooking family meals together, and gave him the warmest smile, thinking he had praised her. He scoffed awkwardly and changed the topic. That always stuck with me. He wasn't laughing with her but at her, behind her back. They lasted 7 months. Story 10. He ended up at the emergency room between the ceremony and the reception. He went out the night before with his sister and friends and got plastered. They had to hold a cold pack to the back of his neck to keep him vertical during the wedding photos. The marriage lasted 30 days until they had a fight. She left the house and he filled the moving truck with everything but her clothes. Story 11. The bride had a bruised eye covered by makeup. Also, it was visible that walking was hurting her. I might think it was because the corset was pushing on broken ribs. Took her 3 years to run away. Story 12. When my sister married her first husband, she mouthed to my father, who was walking her down the aisle, "I can make this work, right?" They were divorced 6 months later. My whole family knew it wasn't a good idea since the original engagement a year prior. Story 13. When the bride tried to playfully feed the groom some cake, she pulled it back once it got close to his mouth. The third time she did this, he slapped it out of her hand and stormed off. In the ensuing awkward silence and wide-eyed staring, we all knew it would not last. Surprisingly, they were together for nearly 2 years before the bride eloped away with her stepbrother. No one saw that coming. Story 14. Prior to my wedding, I had asked my husband to practice dancing with me because I am uncoordinated due to a disability. He dismissed my request and said we would be fine. As we were dancing, he spoke in my ear, not even quietly. "What are you doing? What's wrong with you? You're embarrassing me." We lasted 2 years. Leaving was the best decision I ever made. Story 15. My uncle broke his neck trying to breakdance at his bachelor party. He went down the aisle in a wheelchair, and she divorced him shortly after. He can walk again now, but because of his surgery, he cannot turn his neck. One of my go-to stories because it's really insane. Story 16. Wedding videographer here. I think my favorite moment was when I was sitting at the miscellaneous table with all the random guests. The girl next to me, the groom's ex, drunkenly admitted to sleeping with the groom a few months prior. Story 17. He got so messed up at the reception he had a fistfight with her cousin in the toilets over cocaine. He told all the other cousins to leave him alone. He made advances towards my aunt. He told my cousin's child to come back to him when she was 15 or 16. And he forgot to bring his child to the hotel. Story 18. I was at a wedding when a phone went off during the ceremony. In the middle of exchanging vows, it was the groom's. He took the call. They are divorced now. Edit to add. I believe it was a cousin calling to ask if they were late for the wedding. Story 19. One of my friends got married. Afterwards, she looked at me, crying and said, "What did I do?" They were separated by the time the plane landed from their honeymoon. He was a good guy. She was a mess. The bed of fish in the flower centerpieces lasted longer than the marriage. Story 20. When they got married illegally in high school, 2 16-year-olds from different states had to lie on their certificate to get approved by the state. It was annulled when the father of the groom found out. Story 21. Where to start? The best man was the groom's cocaine dealer who dressed in a tuxedo, the only one in a tuxedo. The groom was high on cocaine and giggled throughout the whole ceremony. The host of the party alternated between arguing with his wife in Russian and coming up to us every time he saw us, the bride's friends, the only people that showed up from her side for the wedding, whenever he saw us in groups of 2 or more, to tell us, "Don't smoke marijuana. If she won't let me smoke marijuana in the house, then you guys can't." Every time we grouped. Story 22. The morning after the wedding at campfire coffee, the new bride turned to the groom and asked, "Are you going to wear your ring every day because it kind of makes you look foolish?" Those of us there side glanced and took deep sips of coffee. I think it lasted 4 to 6 months. Story 23. My brother's ex-wife. Throughout the exchange of vows, she was looking at everyone but my brother, making sure all eyes were on her. Later, she instructed the photographer, A family friend who was inexpensive, to mingle and get shots of people being happy. Within 10 minutes, she summoned the photographer back, shouting, "Whose wedding is this? I meant get shots of people being happy for me." They broke up when she cheated on him. Apparently, that marriage she was desperate for was only good while it brought her attention. Story 24. The bachelor party and the bachelorette party were in Vegas at the same time, across the hall from each other. The bride and groom got in a huge fight on the last night of the trip, and when I was leaving, I said, "I'll see you guys at the wedding," to the groom, and he replied, "I'm not sure there's going to be one. There was a wedding, but they were divorced within 18 months, I believe."